Hello and welcome back to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl, Wealth Transformation. I'm Dr. Cheryl. I have a joke for you. What is it like to you? A human asking God. The human asks, what is 1,000,000 years like to you? God says, like 1 second. The human asks, what is $1,000,000 like to you? God replies, like 1 penny. The human asks again, can I have a penny? God says, just a second. We're in the midst of a very powerful time in our lives. History is in the making. Powerful change is happening all over the planet. What do I mean? Well, all the inequities and lack of integrity are surfacing everywhere on the planet and forcing change emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. To me, this is a very exciting and so positive. The biggest change that is evolving is in our relationships with one another. People are being forced to change from the inside out. I love this because everyone has a chance to really change from the core, the soul. The beginning is really think and feel the unconditional love inside of yourself. Allow yourself to feel this. How do you do this? Well, the first thing is to be aware of what you are saying and thinking to yourself about yourself. What are you saying is negative, bad, or condescending about yourself to yourself? This is where you start to change the words that you think and say out loud. And what you say to others. When you have positive and affirmative language out of your mouth, this is the start. So stop complaining. Write on your mirrors or wherever you can read this. I love myself unconditionally. Anywhere you can see this multiple times a day, especially you guys out there. It really takes concentration, focus, retraining your thought patterns. It takes exercising your mental and emotional muscle to change your thinking and feelings. This affects your relationship with wealth. Can you ask yourself, how healthy is your relationship with wealth? Most people don't even want to talk about it. They are in fear, lack, or shame. In almost every conversation I have with other people about wealth and money, there is a consensus that there's a huge healing that needs to take place, especially in our society. We must forgive ourselves and others and not blame for the way things didn't or did turn out in the way you wanted in a financial situation from the past. Everything happens for a reason. Don't blame, just find the reason and solution, especially when things are challenging. The most successful people have had the biggest challenges financially, mentally, physically, and emotionally, and spiritually. Look what is happening with the Pope as an example. When you're working and pursuing your purpose and passion, things unfold miraculously. To be successful, you make a choice to change from the inside out, and it takes conscious work. I'm very honored to introduce our guest this evening, Connie Clark. This is the first part of a two-part discussion. Connie Clark, known as the Joy Doctor, is an internationally acclaimed author of Joy After 50, a woman's guide to passion, purpose, and lasting happiness. She is a licensed psychotherapist in Sausalito, specializing in the psychology of women, the new science of happiness and positive psychology. Connie is the founder of JoyWorks programs, the popular boomer women's blog, joyafter50.com, and Joy After 50 Plus, women's retreats in California and Mexico. Connie is a consultant, speaker, and retreat leader with more than 30 years' experience at the forefront of personal and professional transformation. As a renowned authority on happiness and authentic success, she delivers talks and seminars to professional conferences and women's organizations. Her uniquely inspiring work is reaching a wide audience through her published articles and media appearances. Connie's interview with Quran TV Jan Wall drew enthusiastic response from viewers to her uplifting book, Joy After 50. Her clients include CEOs, entrepreneurs, physicians, artists, authors, grandmothers, and women starting over after the empty nest, the divorce, or other major challenges. Connie's passion after 1993 has been designing unforgettable ceremonies and retreats for the milestones in girls' and women's lives. Walking her talk, Connie is devoted to continually reinventing and re-enchanting her life and career. She says that beyond her advanced degrees and training, swimming with the wild dolphins was the most transformational and valuable classroom experience in her research on joyful living. Having mastered 4 distinct career transitions, Connie loves to midwife clients through significant life passages. She helps her clients trust there's a bright tomorrow and a new birth waiting to happen, that the cloud of confusion is actually pregnant with infinite possibilities. Connie's message is that joy is the doorway to all of life's riches. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a real treat to have you here, especially to share who you are. And so kind of tell us more. I've already done the introduction for you, which is like breathtaking from what you do and what you've done. So kind of give us your interpretation of what you're about, who you are.
Yeah. And I love that you start with who you are, because it's probably taken me my lifetime and maybe over the last 10 years come to really realize who I am. And in fact, that's one of the questions that I always tell people to ask, my clients to ask themselves is, who am I? Who are you really? So I love, who am I? And you know, I think the gift of getting older, Cheryl, and maybe more confident and just really not worrying so much about what people think or what society or our parents think we should be or do. Who I am today is more aligned with my true nature. And my work is all about joy, you know.
The joy after 50. This is wonderful. She's the joy doctor. Here we are.
And so who I am, my work today is really not work. It's really play for me. And, you know, I could say a whole lot more about that, but...
well, we can talk about that. I'd like to ask some questions.
Sure.
And, you know, that's kind of in the venue of, well, what we're both doing, but a little bit more maybe focused on. But at the end, we can talk about, and you can share everything you want about who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah,
and
good.
the healing that and the help that you're doing with people.
Yeah.
So how were you taught to think and feel about money from your caregivers, your parents, whomever?
Right.
How are you know, what was that base?
That's a good question. And, you know, when I think of wealth, I think of 2 kinds of wealth. I think, because you mentioned wealth and money, I think.
Well, wealth to me is, there's so many different interpretations of wealth, you know. But when you do traditionally think of wealth, you think of money, an accumulation of assets.
Yes.
But I just like to hear it from my guests.
Well, as I look back on my childhood and I think about, you know, what I learned from my parents about money, it wasn't overt. It wasn't, my parents weren't the kind of parents like my friend Tamara, who sat down and, you know, they counted every nickel and they taught her how to manage money. And so money was like a life lesson for her as a child. My parents didn't educate me so much. That may be a little liability for me, and there wasn't a lot of talk about money. I grew up in one of the wealthiest counties in Connecticut, Fairfield County, right outside Manhattan. Oh, it's so beautiful. But we were like upper middle class and very comfortable, but surrounded by big old money, you know, East Coast, New England, old money. And what I learned about my surroundings and my cohorts is that on the East Coast, people are very quiet about their wealth. And it wasn't flaunted.
Why do you think that is? Just because they don't want people knowing they're private, or?
I don't know. I've often wanted, you know.
See, this is one thing that I talk about, is no one really wants to talk about money.
I don't sense that it was that.
No.
It wasn't, a need to flaunt it.
Oh, okay.
You
It was
know,
just there.
It was. They
accepted.
were
It was-
comfortable with
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
They
yeah.
didn't need to prove anything.
Oh, well,
So
see, that's great.
yeah, and
That's a good place to be.
Of course, I didn't have all that money, but at least I didn't feel the pressure that I know some of my clients feel living here in Marin County, because it's. I think the money here is just, the wealth here is so more obvious, perhaps.
Yes.
But anyway. So I didn't learn a lot overtly from my parents about money, except that my father was a American Airlines captain.
Oh,
And we were very comfortable. You know, food, shelter,
Yes.
clothing, medical needs. I mean, I never wanted for much. But I always was put in my place if I asked for too much.
from Daddy.
My mother used to
Oh.
say, you know what she used to say? I still remember. You have champagne taste and a beer
Pocketbook.
pocketbook. Do you know how I hated that?
Oh, I could imagine.
It was like, it felt to me
Yeah.
like, wait
It
a
wasn't
minute.
okay to have high standards?
Exactly.
Oh, come on.
And I was thinking to myself, what if she said to me, well, here's how much, there was a coat I wanted. Here's how much, Connie, I can contribute to this. How could you think of ways of making up the balance and be creative with, anyway.
But
She
that
did-
was a good lesson, though,
What was?
that you could figure out a way to make the balance
That
up.
would have been.
Because then you had to work for it, and
That
you could
would-
appreciate
Wouldn't
it.
that be good?
No.
But she didn't do that. It was
Oh.
just like the statement. I said that would be
Oh.
nice if she'd done that.
Oh.
But she did. But you know, what I was thinking is I learned that my father absolutely loved his work. I mean, he found work that was totally in alignment with who he was.
wow,
And you know, aviation was very different at that time. It was an adventuresome kind of, you know, fly by your pants and
Right.
and all these stories of what they used to do in the cockpit. But my father said, and I just remember this all the time, he'd say, I never worked a day in my life.
Oh, I love it. So he really loved what he
He
did.
loved what he did. And I
And
feel...
they make good money.
And they make good money, but it was never about, you know, it was never about, I love how much American Airlines pays me. And this is what I'm going to do with my money. And it was the quality of life. And to me today, I feel blessed because I remember leading a women's retreat once. I've been leading retreats since 1993. And this was one of the earlier ones. It was a 24-hour retreat. And you know, sometimes the women come and they're a little nervous. And in the opening circle, they were crying and sharing about challenges and losses in their life. 24 hours later, in the closing circle, I looked around. Women were radiant. There had been lots of achievements and people claiming, you know, they had the courage that women find from each other, and saying one moved to Hawaii, she was going to end a relationship, another was going to quit her job. Anyway, but the main thing is I remember sitting in that closing circle and thinking, if I was so full, and I felt if I died right now, it would be okay.
Oh, wow. That's joy right there.
That is because, but because the point I'm trying to make is that I didn't seek the money.
No.
I sought the work that brought me joy.
But don't you think that because you have been following your purpose and your passion with that joy, that you have attracted money? I mean, that's what
how
it's
it
all
works.
about. That's how, yes, exactly.
That's how it
that
works.
magnetic law of attraction. I know that's overused a lot, but it is. It's the law.
In fact, you know, so sometimes, yes, I know about the law of attraction, and, you know, some people will ascribe to that, and then some are real cynics. But what you can't argue with, which I love, which is, what the book is really based on a lot of the research that came out of the last 15 years. You've probably heard of the science of happiness.
Of course.
And there's this new field of positive psychology. And the science of happiness is proving to us we're hardwired to be happy. We're hardwired through, you know, so many different ways in which we can be more loving, more kind, express gratitude.
Unconditional love.
Yeah, and that's your thing, unconditional love.
Yes.
And I've heard some of the people you interview say, well, what is that? How do you do that? And I think that springs from, you know, living following your bliss, as Joseph
Absolutely.
Campbell said.
When you can really know from the soul that you're doing what your purpose and your passion is,
Right.
it just flows.
It does.
I mean, I'm in awe. It's miraculous. I was saying that earlier. It's
Yeah.
miraculous what happens when you're on when you know you're on that path.
Yes.
Things just fall
They
into
do.
place.
Remember there's a
Divine order.
and I totally believe in my life now. I didn't always, that everything is in divine order. As a psychotherapist, there's a saying, the tide of clients comes in and the tide goes out. And when the tide goes out, I'm in a place, because I totally trust in divine order,
Yes.
that I don't freak out. I know that it's probably a time for me to maybe retreat, do some creative work,
Yes.
and then the tide always comes back in.
Isn't that to me is the bliss, is the joy of being in alignment.
Yes.
Is when you can feel that, and I can totally relate to that.
I
Totally
know you
relate to
can.
that. So, but what do spiritual principles mean to you?
Well, okay, first of all,
This is for the viewers.
yes. I always love to look up words. And so because I've always been inclined spiritually, and even though I'm a psychology person,
Right, right.
psychotherapist, I bring a very spiritual dimension
Approach,
to my
yes.
work with people, if they're open, to the degree they're open to it. And so I looked up the word spiritual years and years
Yes.
ago. And it happens to be defined as the animating force in a human being. And I love that, because spiritual, and when I think of principles, they're like truths. You know, a spiritual truth today was true in ancient Egypt. It's
Yes.
something that is abiding and never changes.
Yes.
And you know, the ancient speaking of Egypt, the ancient Egyptians believed that upon death they'd be asked two questions. And the first, this just blows me away. The first question is, did you, oh, by the way, important point, their answers determined whether or not they could continue their journey into the afterlife.
Oh, interesting.
So
Yeah,
those
yeah,
were
yeah.
important questions. And the first was, did you bring joy? And the second was, did you find joy? And so in ancient Egypt, the highest attainment of somebody, a human's life,
Spirit, yeah.
was about about joy. And then I say, you know, fast forward 5,000 years and look how our attitude has changed today.
Oh, I know. But you know what is going on in our society, on the whole global presence, especially around money?
Yeah.
The value system is changing. It has to change. That's why everything, all these inequities and bad things are surfacing to purify.
Yeah.
To get back to that pure, joyful place.
I know. And
loving place, unconditional loving place. That's what it's about.
that's why I love what you're doing, and I love what I'm this teaching about joy, about spirituality, about, you know, authentic, wealth transformation. And, you know, I was thinking, the United States has a long way to go in its happiness. They've actually, in the research that I've done, it shows that there was a study done of 24 countries around the world on the happiness of the children.
Yeah.
You know what the United States came?
It's way.
23rd.
Oh God, that's really
And-
that's so disheartening to me.
It is.
And it's because the value system is off, has been off.
It's because we think we've been conditioned to think, and I know you agree, it's about getting the stuff. If I get the house and the fancy car or the relation, if I get the stuff, then I'm going to be happy.
No, and you know what? When it comes down to it, it's love. That's the most important thing for everyone. I mean, even Warren Buffett says, and I use him a lot, is the two most important things in wealth, no matter what it is unconditional love and no doubt.
And no doubt.
And no doubt. And
Meaning
I've
faith.
talked to bankers. I've talked to different people, and do they have doubt? It's really hard. You have to, it's like you got to really work hard to keep that positive force. And that's, to me, is when you're aligned with your faith, with your spiritual self. then it flows.
Well, and that's true. And when we look at, by the way, I have to interject, the country of Bhutan, have you heard? We measure in this country our economic wealth as a measure of success of how we're doing.
It has to change.
GNP, GDP.
Yeah.
In Bhutan, for decades, they've been measuring GNH, gross national happiness. And in fact, a year ago, Bhutan led, the little country of Bhutan.
I've seen that in my reading.
And they led a conference at the UN. There were 600 people from all over the world, from government, business, religious representatives.
Only 600?
600. But, they were studying happiness. And you know what they concluded at the end of the conference? They made a statement. GDP alone is not an effective measure of human prosperity. That's huge.
Wow.
And they said emphatically, it's not an effective measure of prosperity, which is how we measure in this society.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say also about the research about happiness. Oh, I know what. You said that love is the most important thing, and I agree. I think it's all about love, but I think joy and love go hand in hand.
Oh, of course, because when you feel love, you feel joy.
Oh, actually, I put it the other way around. Think of that, because...
But it all starts in your mind. Well, let's face it. It all starts in your mind. So if you think, you feel.
Right.
I mean, I have finally determined that after lots of trials and tribulations. It's,
your thoughts create your reality.
Yes, totally.
Yes. And so,
or your unreality.
all the spiritual masters write about joy. The Dalai Lama's written a book about. I use joy and happiness interchangeably.
Yes.
But what I came across the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, the author of Autobiography of a Yogi, and I never thought of this. He said, without joy, there cannot be real love. And I thought,
Interesting.
And if you think about it, you know how it is some days, checking off items on the to-do list, I'm stressed, I'm multitasking, I'm not feeling my most joyful self, which is always available. When I'm in a joyful state, I can be more kind and reach out and
Well, see, this is what, I talk about the unconditional love piece on this. And this is a good time to bring this up is, unconditional love is not judging.
Right.
We can't judge. We can't criticize. And you can't have negative talk going on.
That's right.
And that all has to stop. But that's conditioned from early programming. And our society is full of judgmental, on the media.
If you're not thin enough, young enough, pretty enough, rich enough.
Garbage. And it's not good. Like, we were talking earlier about to the kids today. It's not fair. It's not fair. I mean, I know I was raised with, not being thin enough or whatever.
Right.
But you know what? When you have that self-love, that unconditional love inside of yourself, and it has to be from the root, from the core, from the soul.
Right.
It's easy to express joy.
It is. But you know what I realized in my practice? I've been doing therapy. It's like breathing for me now, and I love the work. But I'm finding people need to know how,
Yes.
Like
they need tools. They
need tools.
Just like I was talking about today, catching yourself thinking negative things, stopping that, or if there's stuff that, really looking at, listening and being aware of what you're thinking and what's coming out of your mouth.
Yes.
That's
the first step.
Yes.
Awareness, consciousness.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Of course.
But then the reason I wrote that book, Joy After 50, is I've been studying all this, I was so inspired by the research, and what they have come up with are the simplest, like 1 or 2 minute practices.
Yes.
Awareness is first. Okay, awareness, yes. Practices like, I'll give your viewers a little tip. It's in my book, but they did a study that people who 1 day a week, if you practice 5 acts of kindness, it dramatically boosts your positive emotion
the energy
over time.
Yeah, your emotional energy.
Yes.
It feels good to give. I mean,
Yes.
and however, I could give and give and give, but I have receiving is important too.
That's right.
We have to be able to receive, and that's been a hard lesson for me.
I think it is for a lot of women.
Yeah, it is.
Particularly
it is,
because
the
we're such givers.
Yes, and caretakers, and you know.
And that's also why I have the book is actually set up as Angela Sarian calls it a inspirational and practical weekly resource guide. So every week starts with a theme of joyful living, like self-love is one of them. And overcoming perfectionism and practicing gratitude.
And forgiveness.
And forgiveness is in there.
Forgiveness is huge.
It's huge.
Because forgiveness sets you free.
It does.
It's not for the other person, it's for yourself.
It is, and it's also, I had one of my clients say to me, she really was having a struggle with resentment and bitterness, and it was definitely affecting her joy. And she said, how can I forgive for what he did? I said, you don't forgive the behavior, you just forgive the person.
Yeah. Our tip for today: get to the bottom, to the core of the past experiences with finances that made you feel bad. Let your unconscious mind talk to you so you can release this and get it out of your body. Yes, out of your body. Our body is our sacred temple. Our bodies remember all the good and the bad things that happen to us. This applies to every past experience that is not for your best. So please listen to this message. Get all emotionally traumatic things out of your body. That means all, not just about money. Writing these experiences down is the first step, and then you can talk about it with someone you trust. Don't you want to be free? I'll leave you with this. Success isn't measured by money or power or social rank. Success is measured by your discipline and your inner peace. Never give up on your pursuit of your purpose and passion, even if you don't know what that is. Work with integrity and have a positive attitude wherever you work, and especially with your family and friends. Be grateful for what you have, who you are, and be grateful for your freedom. And eat healthy. Good nutrition feeds the mind and the body, your body temple. Don't forget to feed your spirituality with unconditional love. And firstly, love yourself unconditionally and share your abundance and wealth with others. Thanks for watching. And please and thank you for supporting Marin TV, as they are the ones that bring you all these shows on these channels. Bye for now. Until next time.